So that's why. Let me share the record. Let me share my screen, and then right. Okay. So this is a Python course. So in the first week, what we have learned about the installation of Python, the VS Code, and then we understood about the different data types we have played with. We work with a single data type. We work with data type that contains multiple values, like list. We work with strings. We work with integer and float as well. So all these things will be recapped here. And also we did a bit of control flow statement as well. So which will be recapped over here, and we'll continue further on this thing, what we are doing. Now, in this week, we'll keep on working on data types, the variables, the list, Python, control flow statement, and some random number generator. Again, these are some of the important resources that you can look into it for your better understanding. You can go back to the resources, and then you can look and you can get a bit of more understanding about that one as well. Right. I already told you about one thing, is that our data type is actually where Python works with two important data types. One is called integer, and the other one is float, right? So one is called integer, and the other one is float. So that means an integer is actually a number, a whole number that plays with whole numbers like 10, 15, 20, 30. And a floating is actually something that works with decimal number like 10.5, 10.7, minus 10.5. So in Python, there are two different types of number types that we play with, and those are called integer and the float. And also, we work with another type of data set, which is called string, that is actually called a sequence of characters. Yes or no? So that is called a sequence of character. So we play with either integer number, which is a whole number, a float number, which is actually a decimal number, and a string, which is actually called a sequence of characters that we play. Now let's continue further. These are a couple of examples of the numbers that we've already done in the last week. For example, integer can be like -1, 0, 1, and 2. A real number or a float can be minus 0.55. So these are all fractional numbers that you can see, all the decimal numbers. And characters is something like, okay, hi, A, 66. So whenever I say a single character, I try to put one inverted, one quote. And when it is multiple characters, I put into double quote. Yes or no? That is actually the convention that you have learned in the last class. And I also told you that by default, Python interpreter takes your input always as a character, right? And then you have to convert that character into according to data types that you want to play with. So I'll show you actually how to convert that thing, which you have learned already in the last class. But again, I will recap that thing this week as well. But keeping in mind that a character is a character that actually need to be converted to some other data types if you want to convert that one, okay? And by default, whenever you give an input means through a keyboard, always the input is considered as a character for us. And I also mentioned you one thing, that in Python, the console is actually our monitor, is actually the output console, and the input console is actually what? Our keyboard or the mouse, right? So these are the input console that we play. Any confusion with this thing? Very easy, right? We understood that thing already last week. Now the range, actually, if you see that what they are saying, that a Python integer number can go from -2 to the power 31 to 2 to the power 31 minus 1. Now, if you solve this problem, -2 to the power 31, it's a huge number. It's a very huge number, which is close to an infinite number. So I can say it goes to minus infinite to plus infinite, because you don't play with such a big number, but because of the hardware advancement, because of the complexity that you have built into the system itself, it can now work with a larger number data set as well, right? So that means in Python, the data type usually start from -2 to the power 31 to 2 to the power 31 minus 1. This is actually the integer number that you can play, which is a very good, very big number for us to work with. Then, similarly, with the floating is much, much bigger, which is -10 to the power 308 to 10 to the power 308. So it's actually another huge number that you can take. So any number that you want to play, any number that you want to work with in the Python is possible because these are quite big number range. So this is a very important thing that, especially when I started working with my C or Pascal or assembly languages, there was always a memory constraint. I couldn't play more than, for example, 15 digit, 16 digit. Even if you see the early stages, we used to have 8-digit calculator, right? Then 16-digit calculator. I mean, now that it has changed now. We don't use calculator anymore. We use computer programs to generate all those complex problems for us and give us a bigger number as well, right? So the higher the number is, the precision accuracy goes better and better, right? The more closeness to the accuracy comes into play. But on the other hand, it is such a big number that in Python we don't have problem working with just such a big numbers as well, because of the advancement of all this memory, all this processor, all this interpreter. We can work with such a big number. So ultimately, with the integer and the float, both of them are considered to be infinite, from minus infinite to plus infinite. I mean, you can say that it is such a huge number. Clear, guys? Understood? Is it clear? So it's a very big number that we're playing with integer and float as well. Then we also showed you on the last class that what actually a variable is, right? I mean, initially what we did, we start with one data, either 10, 15, 20, and those data actually are constant in a sense because we cannot play with those, we cannot change those data. Then what we have done, we have come up with a concept where we can use a sort of pot. In that pot, we can put any number like 10, then we can erase the data with new data 50, erase the data with new data 60, 70. In that we can change the data, right? So that means a variable is actually nothing but it is a container that contains variable values. On the other hand, I also mentioned you that a variable is actually nothing but it is actually a pointer that points to the memory location of that particular data that you have saved. Yes or no? So a variable is a pointer or a container that can contain any value that you want to assign. And in that way, what happens? You can change the value of that variable to whatever value you want to work with, right? So that means it is giving you the flexibility of moving away from one constant number to a multiple variable number. Yes or no? Yes or no, right? So that means if I say, suppose a equals to 5, then I can say a equals to 6, then I can move it to a equals to 8, then I can move it to a equals to 9. So every time I can change the value of a, because a is actually a pointer or a container, and I can replace this value of container with any number that I want to do. Clear? Good. Then what we also done actually in the last week, I've shown you that how to assign a variable. Like for example, if I say length equals to 10, width equals to 15, we have done that. Right over here, I'm showing you some more thing, which is called multiple assignments. I mean, rather writing each individual variable line by line, we can write in one single line as suppose A, B, and C. So I got three variables over here, A, B, and C. A is my integer variable, B is my float variable, and C is my string variable. Yes or no? So A contains my integer, which is 5. B contains my decimal, which is 3.2. And C contains my string, which is hello. So that means in one single line, you can actually define multiple variables with multiple values. Clear, guys? So this is one straightforward way to do that. Clear? Clear, guys? Good. Similarly, I can also say something like that x equals to y equals to z equals to same. For example, now in this way, what I am saying that I have variable called x, which is equals to y, which is equal to z, equals to, you can say suppose 10. So that means x, y, and z, all of them contains value of what? 10. Even I can say it is a string, suppose hello. So that means x, y, and z contains a string, which is hello. So that means we can also, so from here, the understanding that we got is that we can assign multiple variables in one single line, and we can put multiple data for multiple variables if we want to. Clear? Okay. Now, I would also like to show you one more thing, which is called over here is the type. So this is a function called type. Type is a very important function for us to know. Sometimes what happens that when you see a very big code that you're playing with, and it is very hard to understand that what type of variable is that. It can be possible because sometimes you find coders that don't define variable in a very good way, or maybe it's a 300 lines of code and you don't know actually where that particular variable has been defined. But you really need to know what type of variable is that actually. So the function that Python allows us to find the type of the variable is called type, type. It's a very simple English word that we use in daily life. So when I am saying type, so this actually type actually tells us that what type of variable it is. So I'm referring to the variable called a, which is actually this one. What do you think? What a variable is? What type of variable it is? Integer, right? So the output will be something called, it is a is, I mean 5, so it will be 5 over here because that is the value. It is not in the double quoted, it is actually outside the quote, so it will be 5 is of type integer. Yes or no? So it will tell us that 5 is of type integer. So that means this type function can be used to identify that what type of variable that we're using. Very simple. And I'm going to run all this code in the PDF code as well. Once I go to the PDF code, I'll show you exactly how they have done it. But for the time being, you just need to find out that type is actually a function that is used to identify the type of variable. Next one. Suppose a equals to 2.0. This is actually called a floating variable, right? Float type variable. I'm saying print a, which is 2.0, is of type. So type is a function, and this function has got one parameter to check for, which is called a. So it will say 2.0 is of type float. Yes or no? So it will say 2.0 is of type float. So this is a very important function of type. So when you'll be working with a large program and you want to find the type of variables that you're using, you can use that function called type to find out what type of variable it is. Okay. Now, before I continue further, this is one important thing. Programming is such a easy. I'll make it easy for you guys because the way I'm teaching, hopefully I can make each and every one of you understand each and every individual concept because I'll go line by line throughout the whole semester. I'll go line by line so that you can understand, but you will definitely forget this thing if you don't practice it. Okay, programming is such a concept that if you don't practice it for one single week, you'll forget the whole thing. And those who haven't prepared, who haven't seen those week one materials, they'll find it hard actually for the week two, right? So this is a word of caution. We are at the very beginning of the semester. I really want you to keep up the pace. So once I finish the class, you go home, at least spend 1 or 2 hours per day and playing with programming and get your concept clear. Okay? So from you, this is the only thing that I want. I want you guys to go home and practice what I have taught in the class. That's all. And leave it up to me, up to my responsibility. I will make sure that you understand each and every individual line of the code. I'll give my full effort on that one, but I want some effort from you. Tomorrow, if you come and say that what is type A, and if you say that will make me very unhappy because I've already taught you that thing in the class. So practice those things. Clear, guys? So do you guys practice at home programming? Have you started programming practicing? Good. Those who haven't done, please start it. It's a very important thing. Okay. Please do it. Otherwise, it will be a big problem because you'll forget this programming very easily if you don't do it. Okay. Let's start. Continue more. I also so right now I have showed you sort of what is called a variable that contains a single number. Then I also showed you how to find the variable using type function. I also discuss about a variable that contains multiple number that is called array, right? Or a list. So let's start with the list again. I'll recap that thing again, what actually a list is. A list is actually something that allows you to store multiple data with one single pointer. Okay, so it contains a multiple data in one particular array or a list. For example, think about this one. This is actually a list. A list contains over here 3 different types of data type. Last time what we have seen a list containing the same data type. A equals to, suppose we have seen like this: 5, 4, 1, 0, 6. Right? We have seen in this way last time. So in the last time, we have used a list with one single data type. Either it can be an integer, or it can be a float, or it can be a string. But on the other hand, you also know that list can also contain of multiple data types with one single list itself. For this is the classic example where a list contains an integer value, a floating value, and also a string. There are 3 things that it is storing. And you also remember that a list can be indexed, right? So you can do the index on the list to find the value of each and every position of your list itself, right? So you remember this is called 0, the first position, then 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the way we extract the value is actually by using a index position. And this position can be anything like 0, 1, anything you can do, starting from the left. And if it is from the right, it will be something a, -4, -3 in that way. So you have done that. You also did a bit of slicing as well. So those who haven't forgot that thing, please go back again. Again, I'm saying go back again and practice it. All the codes are there as well, just for your better practice. But now, from here, I understood one thing. A list is actually called an indexed element, where actually you can find each and every individual data of your list by using index position. And a list can also contain multiple data type like integer, float, and string. Clear, guys? Understood? Good. Similarly, this one. This is another list that contains all the integer value 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. So these are all lists. Then I'm saying I'm just doing something called printing value A2. So if you see this particular function, how it will look like? It will look like something like this, right? A2 equals to, what is the value of A2? Tell me. So how much? 15, right? Because this is 0, 1, and this is 2. So if I say this is called A2 equals to 15. Very simple. Similarly, if I do this one, tell me what is this? A0 to 3 equals to how much? 5, 10, 15. You know that in the list, what happens? It starts from 0 to 3 means it doesn't finish at 3. At least actually 0 to 3 means there are 3 numbers. So 0, 1, and 2. So this is a 0 position, this is the first position, and this is the second position. So 0, 1, and 2. So when I say print A 0 to 3, that means it is printing my 0 position, first position, and second position. So from here, from all this list, what I understood that our list is actually indexed element, indexed array, where you can find each and every individual data based on the index position. A list can be sliced 0 to 3, 1 to 5, -4 to -1. This type of slicing you can do. And a list can also contain multiple data type if it wants to store. Clear, guys? Yeah. Understood? Good. Let's go to the next one. Everything I'll show you in the PDF code as well. But if you don't understand, please raise your hand. I'll come back again. Yes. Mm-hmm. Come again? In the first array where you have different data types, you replace the data type with another data type in the same index number. Yeah, it can do that. Yes, you can change the data type if you want to. I mean, these are actually simply a data value into the data location. So you can replace us floating with the integer and our string with the decimal value as well. Not a problem. Good question. Okay, let's continue further. So I understood about list, right? So list is already understood. Where is a tuple? Tuple is also called an ordered sequence of items, and this is called immutable. That means once you define any data with a tuple, you cannot modify the data. With the list, what you can do, you can go to the index position, you can change the data with some new thing. Like suppose initially A0 was 10, I want to make A0 as 15, so I can do that. But with the tuple, what actually happens, it is also a sort of another sort of data type, I mean another sort of list that actually store the data in a sequence manner, but you cannot, and they're immutable. So you cannot actually modify those data. So these are called write protected data. These are called write protected data. So when you work with sensitive data, and when you want that someone to see your data, but they cannot protect it, I mean, they cannot write on top of those, you use tuple. So tuple actually allows you to visualize, to play with the data, but it will not allow you to modify the data. Clear, guys? So, for example, and in the tuple, for example, in the set, we use like this third bracket, okay? Or is it third bracket? Or square bracket? So square bracket, sorry. So square bracket, and in the tuple, we use a first bracket, right? So in a tuple, we use a first bracket, and as you can see, it also contains different data types, not a problem, but they're all in some sequences. And you use this tuple only just for a write protected data. How I'm going to use it will come to you in the coming weeks as well, when you'll be working with some write protected data as well, when you'll be working with some files that are data protected files, okay? We will be defining tuples. But you have to understand that there is another type of list which is called tuple. Clear, guys? Yes. Understood? How about you guys? Clear? On that side? I'd like to hear a little bit more, huh? If you don't understand, please let me know. Then, the last one is called Python set. This is another type of list. So we'll learn three. One is called the list, the other one is called tuple, and the other one is called set. A set is called unordered selection. That means there is no order actually. So when you say there is no order, that means you cannot do any indexing. There's no indexing because, I mean, what is the purpose of indexing if it is not ordered properly? So that's why it is called an unordered selection of data, and they always uses a third bracket in order to define a set. And in this set, you can see you can put 5, 2, 3, 1, 4 in that type of way you can do. But these are actually all unordered. They are not in the ordered way. You can, I mean, over here there will be no slicing operator. You can do the indexing, but there will be no slicing operator because you cannot slice them. Okay, from which location to which location, there is no slicing operator. It doesn't work for this sort of thing. And you use this type of Python set, especially when you work with dictionaries. You know, it comes with key and value pairs. Telephone dictionary, your name and the telephone number. Okay. Similarly, word dictionary, the characters with the meaning of the particular word. So this is even your home directory as well, your name and the home address as well. So all these are called, actually they have been defined with sets. Sets are called unordered sequence of data, and they come up with pairs, and we can use that thing as a part of a dictionary as well. Okay, so this is another type of data set that we can use, especially when we work with multiple numbers. So in order to minimize, and this is also called an unordered collection of data. So in order to wrap up, so there are three types of arrays that we have looked into. One is called list, which is actually where you can do the indexing, you can change the data, and it can contain multiple data. The second one is called tuple, which is an ordered sequence of data. You can definitely do the indexing as well, and then but you cannot write the data. You can read the data, but you cannot write on or you cannot change the data. And the third one is called set. This is called also an unordered sequence of data. You can do the indexing, you can find the position of the data, but you cannot do slicing because that is not important. And this type of sets are used, especially it comes with key and value pairs, which are used in terms of dictionaries. So all these three different types of arrays has got three different types of applications, and those applications will be explained in more detail in the coming slides and in the coming weeks as well. But if I just wrap it up from here, so that means we understood of the constant, then we went to variable, from the variable to list to tuple, tuple to sets, and also you work with string as well. Clear? Understood, guys? Very good. Yes. The Python set, yes. I mean, I will show you in the class today itself that with the Python set, what we do, we use it for dictionaries in a sense, like we use for key and value pairs. So the name of the person and the telephone number. So the name is actually key and the value is actually the telephone number. And how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to write it, I'll show you in the code itself. So this type of Python is actually used for dictionary, where you use key and value relations and get the output out of it. Okay, so next, go to the PDF code. So we'll go to the PDF code. So let me minimize this one, and let me ask questions to my online students. So online students, have you understood what I have said? Have you understood what I have said so far? Is that clear? Good. Very good. Very good. So let me start with a new recording. I really don't want to make it big, and then come with a new recording.